I had a sermon come to me early this morning that came from the depths of my dreamy sleep from an alternative gospel that is given for Christmas Day, which I want to read to you now. And that is from the Gospel of John, the first chapter. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. The true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him. Yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood, or of the will of the flesh, or of the will of a person, but of God. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And we have seen his glory, the glory of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. I heard from Hans last night in a dream, shortly before I woke up. I'd been out walking across a city. I don't know which city I was in. But I'd been walking, and I'd taken my bike with me this time on this walk. And I don't know how I was going to get it back from wherever it was that I ended up. I'd been so excited for some reason to take my bike out that day. This time I got it back to a place where I could start to ride it again, and my journey continued. And then I got a call from Hans. I answered the phone. Which Hans? Knowing which Hans it was. I said, "Hey, are you a Lutheran?" It was at the very beginning of our friendship. And I thought, how cool of Hans to call. And it was 5:12 in the morning. How I remember this detail from my dream, I don't know, but it was. I answered because I thought, you know what, let's talk to this guy. I kind of liked him. And we talked for hardly a minute, but I knew who it was. And it was the closest that I can come to Hans, because he's been gone for almost 8 years. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth. I had this dream right before I woke up. Right before. And the Word became flesh. And we waited for so long. It felt like an eternity. It felt like an eternity. We wondered if we would ever see him. And then in the middle of the night, he called, wondering if we would know who he was. Wondering if we would know. Wondering if we would accept him. But he still had the courage to call. And then the Word became flesh. The Word. Out of our dreams. Out of the dreams of millions of people who walked through deserts for 40 years, like the Hebrew people. More than half their life taken away walking through the wilderness, through the desert. Children who had no other memory but just the walking and the walking and walking. People my age who began the journey as babies and didn't reach the promised land until they were 42 years old. We didn't think we'd ever make it. And I didn't think I'd ever hear from Hans again. After he went down and he fell those 3 stories and he landed on the concrete and lasted just a short time longer. And then he went to be with Jesus. And the Word became flesh because there was no other way. The Word could not have become fabric or cotton candy. The Word could not have become another book to be put on another shelf and forgotten, because then it might as well just not have even been written. It had to become flesh. And that flesh had to grow. And it had to be nurtured. And it had to be tended to, just like the animals in the barn that he was born in. And that flesh, that man had to go through some stuff. He had to walk along a few paths where he didn't know what the end was going to look like, at least not right away. That flesh. And that flesh was the home for God. Because God couldn't just live on a tablet of stone or in an Ark of the Covenant or in a temple. God could not just live in the laws. Like the people of old, they wrote those laws on their hearts. On their hearts. So they wouldn't just be some dusty things sitting on a shelf or under a bed or under a chair somewhere. And the Word became flesh and it fulfilled those laws. What does it even mean to fulfill those laws? That's something that those of us who have been given flesh can ponder and can say, well, maybe it means this or maybe it means that. The wind can't ponder, and the trees, I don't think they can think. And the vast reaches of space, they hardly have any thoughts back there. At least that's what I think, because I don't know, I've never met the depths of space. Never encountered those vast reaches. But the Word became flesh. And I encountered that. I didn't encounter the flesh itself. I could only encounter the echoes of it. Echoes like out of a dream. I wish I could have had more time with Hans. I wish I could have had more time with him in real life, in the flesh. I wish I could have had more time with him in that dream also. We just started to get to talking when I woke up. But he came, he showed up. He didn't look the same when I had met him earlier in the dream, but I knew it was him. All of those Hanses. Everybody has somebody, I'm sure. Maybe for many of us, there are many of them. For some of you, maybe they were friends like mine. For many of you, they were parents, or they were brothers or sisters. For some, they were lovers, husbands, maybe wives. For a very few of them, they may have been husbands or wives that never turned out to be. For others, they were babies who were not able to be. And the Word became flesh, and it dwelt among us, full of grace and truth, full of grace, like the flesh that bore it, and truth, a fuller truth than I or any of us or all of us put together could never fully understand. They'd been walking through the wilderness for so long, and then they waited, and then they waited. And even after that, they were captured, and they were taken to Babylon, and they were mocked, and they were told to sing. And they went through more war and more loss even after they'd been liberated. And they wondered, where is that Messiah? Where is that Prince of Peace? Where is that King of Kings and Lord of Lords? Because we have been waiting for him for so long. And the Word became flesh. Finally. I wonder if we'll ever see that flesh again. I wonder if I'll ever see Hans again. And I long for the day when, after being subject to evil regimes and seeing millions of people killed by them, people I never knew, people that I could never know, but people nonetheless. I wonder, will the Word become flesh? Will it dwell among us? Will it be full of grace and truth? And the Word became flesh. And it did dwell among us. And it is full of grace and truth.